One of the most common areas of difficulty for people who are learning to play the guitar is bar chords. I hear it a lot from my students. I can't play them, makes my fingers hurt, can't get a good sound on the strings. So I want to think today about bar chords. Why do we choose to use them? Are there ways in which we can practice to improve them? And can we avoid them altogether? Are there alternatives? On this series of videos we've looked a lot at open chords. And in all of those chords there are strings that we're not fretting, and we're allowing those strings to ring and create that big open sound. Sometimes we don't want that. Sometimes you want no sustain on your strings, you want a very clipped sound, and you want a good, simple, powerful, straight chord. You'll only get that by making sure that all 6 strings are fretted at one point or another. This is where we come into bar chords. I'm not going to talk to you about all the positions of bar chords. Again, you can see that in chord books or song books, or you can find these things online. But I am going to look carefully about how we play them and why. Most of them, or most of the common ones, are based round shapes that you would normally play in first position: E minor, E major, A minor, A major. And the idea is that we'd use those shapes further up the neck but stop the fret behind. So if we were barring at the 5th fret, stopping this fret, those same shapes, that becomes an A minor, A major, D minor, D major. It requires you to change fingers. That's a standard way of playing an E major chord. If you're using that shape in a barred position, you need to be using your little finger, your 4th finger, and your 2nd finger. There's the E major. If I move that up a fret and bring in my 1st finger on all 6 strings, we have an F major. And I'm not allowing those strings to ring because they're not part of the F chord. The thumb is placed on the neck behind to allow sufficient pressure from that finger to fret those strings. Playing an F major as the first bar chord you try and do is very common. It's also first big mistake. The fault lies with the people who write guitar tuition books, because for some reason they always want to start teaching people to play in C first. There's a C chord. An F chord is hard to play when you're starting, and a G chord is actually quite a big stretch when you're starting. But nevertheless, we see a lot of guitar tuition books beginning in C. If you think about that F major chord, why is that so difficult? Well, your hand is quite a long way away from your body, and if you just go into position of that chord, whether or not you can play the bar or not, have a look at the relationship between your hand and your wrist. Your wrist is actually twisted and pulled at quite an uncomfortable angle. And because you're a long way from your body, it's hard to get that pressure there. As you move that shape up towards your body, when you come to about the 5th fret, your wrist and your hand are actually pretty much in a straight line. you can get a lot firmer grip. Consequently, you get a better sound. And I would suggest that if you're starting to practice bar chords, you don't start with your F, you start with your A, because it's a much more comfortable position for your wrist and hand to be in, and also because it's more tucked into your body, it's much easier to get a good firm grip. At the 5th fret, you might find, as I do, that getting that A shape with 3 fingers is a bit of a squash. You can do it, but it's not comfortable. Experiment around here. Personally, I find it easier to flatten that finger, the 3rd finger, across 3 strings. I find that a lot more comfortable. You may not. You may be fine with using those 3, but they have to be in between those frets. So at the 5th fret, that's A minor, A major, D minor, D major. Of course, that then gives you the ability to play in any key you want. Because wherever you are on the guitar, those chords will follow the same pattern. I still maintain that the reason for using bar chords is because that's the sound that you want. But it does mean, if you're used to playing a song in G major, G, C, D, G, and somebody starts singing that in G sharp, you can still play G sharp, C sharp, E flat, or D sharp, G sharp. Look up all of the majors and minors for bar chords and practice them by all means, but my advice would be to start using the bar at the 5th fret and experimenting with A minor, A major, D minor, D major. If we're thinking about playing in different keys, then of course there's a little tool that helps you to do that, and that's the capo. This is one made by Shub. In my opinion, this gives you the best grip on your strings without altering the tuning. There are lots of different types. This is a different company who makes this capo. It fits on very easily, comes off very easily. This is a different type again, made so that you can change from one fret to another. There you go, capo on 2nd, capo on 4th, capo on 5th, capo on 1st. You can change very quickly. This time then, if we're thinking about that song that was in G, and if we're doing some more interesting things, you would never be able to do that with bar chords. You can if you use your capo. We're going to go into G sharp. I've just put a capo on 1. Bringing up again, of course, we're in A. So one of the uses of capo is to change the key that you're singing or playing in without needing to change shape. That doesn't mean you don't need to learn to play in different keys, but what it does mean is that there are certain songs which it will help you to play in the key that suits your voice. We've seen with the D shape that this is a very common way of using the D shape because of the way the notes sit, because of where they are on the strings, because of the fact that you have the third note of the chord on the top string. There aren't any other keys that works in very well. If you're in an E, that doesn't work. And of course, that's not on the top string. You've got other notes above it. So if you take something like the beginning of Michael Jackson's Black or White, that's very obviously written in a D shape. You wouldn't play it with any other shape. However, it isn't in the key of D, it's in the key of E. And here's how you play it in the key of E. Very simply, put a capo on 2. There you are. Listen to the intro of Folsom Prison Blues by Johnny Cash. That's very clearly written in an E shape because you want this bend going to an open string in the bottom. Okay, well let's play it. Oh dear, that's way too low for my voice. Actually, it's way too low for Johnny Cash's voice because he sings it in F sharp. I guarantee the guitar player will be not barring. He'll be using a capo. I hear that train. Actually, that's still a bit low for me. I think if I was going to do it, I'd probably take it up as far as here. I hear that train a-comin', it's rolling round the bend. So I would do it for my voice in G sharp, and by using a capo you can get the right key for your voice. You can keep the original sound of the guitar part in the right key for you. So that's a bit about bar chords, capos, keys and playing. You need to experiment again about what suits you. Where would you use bar chords? Where would you use a capo? Where would you use open chords? It's all a matter of taste, but hopefully this video has given you some thoughts about how to improve your bar chord playing and where it's appropriate to use.